Hello my lovelies and welcome back to my channel. If you've been on BookTok, BookTube, any sort of book platform, I know that you've seen the whole weird girl book trend. I personally love a weird girl book, love a book that's weird, that some people might say, why are you reading that? That sounds a little weird, a little disturbing. I love it. So today I'm going to be giving you guys 10 weird girl book recs. So the first book I have on my list is Bunny by Mona Awad. This one is an obvious one. If you've ever gotten to the rabbit hole of weird girl litfic, this is the first one you're going to see. This book is wildly popular among the little weird girl subgroup of BookTok and it's absolutely just been everywhere. And there's actually a sequel or a prequel, I'm not sure, coming out soon, I think, real soon. So now people are going crazy over it again. I read Bunny. I didn't love Bunny, but I did appreciate it in a like sort of disconnected way, if that makes sense. Like I personally didn't super enjoy reading it, but I also could respect and recognize the how smart the writing was, how smart the author of this book is, and how like witty and good the writing was objectively, even if I didn't personally find too much enjoyment out of it. I think I rated Bunny 2.75 stars, so I didn't rate her super high, but I know a lot of people that rated it as a 5-star, and I can definitely see what people love about it, if that makes sense. I thought it was a little slow for me. Like the first half was like struggle to get through, but then as things started to unfold and get kind of crazier, I was like, okay, that's smart. And I really did like the ending. I liked how it tied everything together and I really enjoyed it. Now, if somehow you haven't seen Bunny Everywhere and you don't know what it's about, Bunny essentially follows this woman who is in college, and she's in college for writing. And she's in a class with this weird group of girls that's like very preppy, very uppity, and very cultish. It's very weird, and she decides that she kind of wants to integrate herself into this group. So she joins a group and she kind of sees all these weird things that are going down in this group, very cultish, very creepy, very like disturbing, and her best friend is kind of like, whoa, what's happening? You're kind of losing your mind, you're kind of going insane. And we just follow her down this little rabbit hole, no pun intended, of her just kind of joining this group and becoming like in the part of the hive mind with these people, and weird things happen. Really weird things happen. It's definitely weird, hence the name of the video. So if that's something that seems like it would be enjoyable for you, definitely go for Bunny. The next book I have on my list is Interesting Facts About Space by Emily Austen. If you know me, you know I absolutely adore Emily Austen, and all of Emily Austen's books I would call weird girl books because they're all circle around mental health in a way, but then in a way that's not upsetting, in a way that they don't like dive deep into it. They just kind of like talk about it as if it's like everyday thing in a way that's kind of almost satirical, but also like real life, realistic. I don't know, I feel like that didn't make any sense, but I really love Emily Austen's writing style. I love the way she writes and I love all of her books. I will read anything she puts out there, and Interesting Facts About Space, to me, I will call her weirdest book. So if you want a weird one, that's the one to go for. The plot of this book, we follow our main character who has a crippling fear of bald men. Yes, you heard me right. The whole plot is that she is trying to get over her fear of bald men. And she's also extremely paranoid. She suffers from anxiety and she is paranoid about everything going on, and especially if she sees a bald guy. If she sees a bald guy, she is absolutely terrified. And we just follow her journey of sort of going through life and dealing with this. And she's a very weird girl, but she's also very likable, and you will fall in love with her, and as you do with any Emily Austen main character. But yeah, I think because the main character is just so odd of a premise, I would definitely call that a weird girl book. I wouldn't say it's disturbing in any way. Like a lot of these books on the list, I would say kind of disturbing. This one, not disturbing, but it is really good. And it is also sapphic. The next one I have on my list is To Be Devoured by Sarah Tanslinger. This book is super short, okay? It's less than 100 pages. Very, very short book. You get through it very quickly, but not too quickly, because this book, super disturbing, super gross, super gory. You're definitely gonna have to pause. Well, I definitely had to pause and put it down, set it aside, and take a moment to be like, okay. I famously don't do very well with gore. It's fine for me reading about it, but I have like a legitimate phobia of blood. If I see blood, I literally have a panic attack. Like it freaks me out. But reading about it is for some reason less bad to me. I don't know, but there were definitely lots of times in this book where I had to set it down and just like take a moment to breathe, recollect myself. But I did really enjoy this book. Aside from me being grossed out the whole time, I thought it was really good. I thought it was really well done. This is one for the girls who don't mind weird, gross, disturbing crap. It follows our main character who is obsessed with vultures, like absolutely obsessed with vultures, so much so to the point where she wants to be a vulture. And as you know, what do vultures eat? Carrion. They eat dead meat. And so because she has this obsession with vultures and she wants to become a vulture, she then has an obsession with carrion and she wants to just eat like dead raw meat. Insane, absolutely insane, but it was very good, very enjoyable. It's one of those where you don't really understand anything that's happening until the end, and because it's so short, it works really well, and it's just a really, really good book if you want something disturbing. And again, it is sapphic, but not happily sapphic, very much disturbingly so. The next book I have on my list is My Darling Dreadful Thing. This one is a gothic horror book. I think this is like the only gothic horror book I've ever read. I don't normally read gothic books, it's just not really my thing. I'm not into gothic or like academia, but I really, really enjoyed this book. This book was really, really good. This book follows our main character who is best friends, or maybe more than that, something. She has this really weird relationship going on with a ghost that lived in her house when she was growing up, and now it's her familiar and they go together everywhere, and they're like, the ghost is like super possessive of her and doesn't like her talking to anyone else. And I don't remember exactly how everything unfolds, but she ends up in this sort of strenuous relationship with this family that is like kind of uppity, and as she kind of gets to know everyone, she learns that there's a lot of not great things going on in this family and going on with these people, and there's a lot of messed up stuff happening. And in the book, in present time, our main character is being questioned by the police for a murder, but we only see that in flashes, and we mostly see the story that's unfolding that got her into this situation. And I just think it's excellent. And I think one thing that I really liked about it is that it's ambiguous at the end. You don't really know if she's guilty or not. Like, it's hard to tell if you can trust what she's saying, because you don't really know if she's reliable or unreliable. You don't know if she's actually insane or if these events actually happened. And I really like that about it. I like that it's up to interpretation. Again, this one is sapphic, and it's one of those, definitely look up some trigger warnings, because like I said, as with lots of gothic horror, a lot of messed up stuff happening. But I loved this book. I thought it was really well done, and I would highly recommend. The next one on my list is Rainbow Black by Maggie Thrash. This one is another one I read recently. It should be in one of my wrap-ups, but this one is one of those where I was telling my friend that I was like about the plot while I was reading it, and she was like, why are you reading that? Like, I don't know. But I really, really enjoyed Rainbow Black. I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would, which I know you're thinking, why would you pick up a book if you didn't think I would enjoy it? I did think I would enjoy it, just not as much as I did. And I really, really enjoyed it. So Rainbow Black follows our main character, and it's kind of split between two timelines. The first half, we kind of follow her childhood, and then we kind of follow her adult life after that. And essentially, in her childhood, which is really rough childhood, by the way, her parents are on trial for child molestation. They run a daycare during the Satanic Panic, and people are accusing her parents of being devil worshippers who are molesting children, using these children in like demon rituals and all this stuff. And again, we don't really know if her parents are guilty or not guilty. Like, it's kind of interesting because it's from the perspective of the child who obviously wants to think her parents are innocent, but then there's also like they're pushing evidence on her that her parents are guilty, but then she thinks they're innocent, so she's trying to give all the reasons they're innocent. It's very interesting. So the whole first half of the story, we're dealing with her parents' court case and what's going on, and it's obviously very difficult on her, and a lot of things end up happening to her. She ends up in a lot of bad situations, and she ends up having to be on the run. And so then that's where we fast forward to our second half of the story, where it takes place when she's an adult. She's been on the run, she's hiding out in Canada, and now she's been found, and she's worried about what that problems that's going to cause for her. This is one that I genuinely, like I said, enjoyed way more than I thought I would. It might sound a bit but it's actually really, really good. It's really well done. Definitely disturbing, definitely look up trigger warnings, but I thought it was a really great book. And once again, it does have queer rep, it is sapphic, and it does also have trans rep in it. So the next one I have on this list is more of a YA novel, and that is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. This one is actually a series. It's a 6-book series, and I have talked about this on my channel multiple times because I absolutely adore this series. 5-star series, one of my favorite series ever. And it's not as weird, I think, as some of the other books on this list, but I call it weird. There's a movie that's based on the book. It's very loosely based on the book though. Like, it's like very different plot happens in the movie than what happens in the book. But the movie is a good movie, and the movie, I believe, is directed by Tim Burton. So if you've watched Tim Burton movies, you know that kind of weird is what I'm talking about when I talk about Fir Acres. It follows our main character, Jacob. I believe that's his name. It's been a while since I read these books. But anyways, Jacob's grandfather has recently passed away, and Jacob's grandfather, his whole life, his dad had a very difficult relationship with his grandfather, and now his grandfather, before he died, told Jacob all these stories that Jacob at some point had believed were true, and then his dad kind of convinced him they weren't true because they sounded very fantastical and made up. So Jacob kind of goes on this journey of like self-discovery where he's trying to reconnect with his grandfather, but also he's trying to figure out if these stories he told him were true or not. So he ends up going to the island in Wales where his grandfather grew up, and he ends up discovering a time loop. And when he steps into the time loop, he meets all of these weird children that aren't really children because they've been stuck in this loop for hundreds of years, and they like know that like they're 100 years old, but they're also in these like children's bodies, and so they have a mind that's like kind of child mind, kind of adult. It's very interesting, and they all have powers. They all have different magical abilities, and these children with powers are called peculiar children. And Jacob finds out that his grandfather was peculiar, and he kind of goes on this whole journey with all these people. And this is one where the series progresses and gets way more expansive and way more intricate as it goes on. There ends up being lots of war and fighting and things that have to happen, and Jacob is thrust into the middle of it, but none of this happens in the first book. This happens as the story goes on. So definitely this is one where I would say stick with it. It's great at the start and it just keeps getting better, and I would say it could be classified as weird because if you see the movie, the vibe, it's very eerie vibe, you know, so I would say it's weird girl. The next book I have on my list is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. This one is a book that I've seen so many mixed opinions of. I personally love this book, love her down. This was my first 5-star read this year, and it was also like the first book I read this year, so if that tells you anything, it is such a great book. I think it's wonderful. I can understand how people don't like it because they say it's confusing, it's hard to follow, all of these things, which yes, it is. It's written very lyrically, very like prose-y, almost like poetic, and everything that's happened, it's not happening in chronological order. This passage happened this many years ago, this passage is in the future, this passage is in the past, this passage never even happened. Like, it's like very confusing, and you're not going to get it at first, but once it clicks, it clicks. And there's lots of metaphors and lots of stuff that's like, this is supposed to represent this, and this is supposed to represent this, and it can be very confusing, but it's also very magical, very whimsy, and I absolutely adore it. And I think because of the whole like the way that time unfolds, the way that the story gets told, I would definitely call it weird because it's not like, you know, normal like point A to point B. It's like going around in loop-de-loops, and it's absolutely incredible. I love this book so much, and I highly recommend it. Once again, it is queer, so like I said, there's lots of different timelines, lots of different like sub-stories, but the main plot line follows our main character, Zachary, who finds this book. And this book, as he reads it, it recounts a story that happened to him, but it's something that he never told anyone about. And so he's freaked out, and then he discovers that this book has something to do with this society, and so he goes to a ball with this society, and his life is never the same. It's so interesting, so weird, so captivating, and I just absolutely adore this series. I cannot recommend it enough. Next book I have on my list is Pure Nessie by Susanna Clarke. This is another one that's very big, lots of people talk about, and I absolutely love this book. I will admit, at first, super confused, didn't know what was going on, wasn't really into it, but as it kept going and kept going, I just learned to absolutely love it. This book is very weird, and it's hard to really describe, I guess, but essentially our main character, Pure Nessie, is in this weird world where there's just endless hallways and corridors, and there's like a tide that comes in, and there's really weird visuals that she describes, and there's only one other person in this world, and Pure Nessie calls him the other, and Pure Nessie keeps a diary of what happens every day, but feels like he's missing some of his diary entries, and it just kind of follows him as he tries to navigate in this world and figure out what's going on. And you as the reader don't really know if you can trust him or not. You don't know exactly if he understands what he's saying or if he's kind of losing his mind in this world. And then at the end, we kind of figure out how all this happened, and then you're kind of like, wow, that's crazy. And I thought it was excellent. I really enjoyed it. Again, very weird, very confusing. If you don't want something that's going to be a little bit hard on your brain, like you're gonna have to really think about what's going on, then you wouldn't want this one. But if you want something weird that's gonna be like, what on earth is happening, that's a great one. Next we have Our Wives Under the Sea. I think this one's classified as a horror book, but I wouldn't really call it horror. I don't know, it's not scary by any means. Essentially we have our main character whose wife is like, her job is to go down to the depths of the ocean and like observe and research whatever. And she goes down on a trip that's supposed to take only 2 weeks, but it ends up becoming like the 6-month thing because they get like stuck down there, and when she returns she is not the same. And we kind of flash between two different perspectives. We follow the wife who stayed on land's perspective of how her wife is changing, and then we also flash back to the wife who went under the water and what happened to her under there. We don't ever fully understand what happened or why the stuff is happening, and it's very weird, and the ending is weird. That's the only way I know how to describe it. What's happening to the wife is weird. I personally didn't love the ending. I was just kind of like, okay, so that's it, that's all we get, and I don't know, that was how I felt about it, but it was definitely a weird experience. So, and then the last book on my list, this one is another one that's more YA, and that is The Spirit Bares Its Teeth. This one is a horror novel, and it's definitely horror. It's very graphic, very gory, very disturbing. It follows our main character Silas, who is a transgender man, but he is in 1800s, I believe, England, and he is not able to like publicly transition, so he's still presenting to the outside world as a woman. And Silas has violet eyes, which means that he can see through the veil and he can see spirits. And violet-eyed women are very coveted in society to make wives because the men want to have violet-eyed children so that they can make them their heirs. Silas is only 16, I believe, in the book, but his parents are already trying to marry him off to a nice wealthy husband. Silas wants to be a doctor. He's obsessed with medicine. He's obsessed with like surgery and doing surgery, so he really wants to be a doctor. And he ends up sneaking into this event under the guise that he is a different man, and he shows up to the event, and at the event someone ends up being badly hurt, and so being medically involved or whatever, he tries to help the guy, and this ends up in a spiral because they realize that he is not who he says he is, and he's a biological woman, and they realize just all this stuff. He ends up getting sent to this like corrective academy where they take young women and try to fix them. You already know it's going to be bad. As the story unfolds, we discover so many messed up things going on in this place, so many terrible things happening, and Silas has to try and save himself, but also save the other women that are there. And it's a struggle, and it's very, like I said, disturbing, gross, terrible things happening, and there's also ghosts on top of that, and it's just a whole mess. But it's definitely weird, and it's definitely creepy and gory, and definitely look up trigger warnings, but it is an excellent book, and it does feature a T for T relationship, so we love the representation, and I highly recommend it. I thought it was excellent. I haven't read Andrew Joseph White's other book, Hell Followed With Us, but I am planning to at some point because I don't own it, but I want to get it because if it's anything like The Spirit Bares Its Teeth, it'll be excellent. Anyways, that is all the weird girl book recs I have for you guys. If you have any weird girl recs, comment them down below, and yeah, I will see you guys next week. Bye.